Welcome to another deep dive into what might just be the biggest business facepalm moment of all time, when Blockbuster said, "Nah, we're good," to buying Netflix for a mere $50 million back in 2000. Spoiler alert, they weren't good. Not even close. Imagine walking past a winning lottery ticket on the street because you're too busy adjusting your Walkman. That's basically what Blockbuster did, except the lottery ticket was Netflix. And instead of a Walkman, they were too busy charging late fees that made their customers want to riot. Let's set the scene. It's the year 2000. The internet is making dial-up noises that sound like a robot having an existential crisis. DVDs are the hot new thing, and Blockbuster is sitting pretty with over 9,000 stores and a market value of $5 billion. They're the undisputed king of movie rentals, and their late fees alone are generating $800 million annually. Life is good in the Blockbuster kingdom. Enter Netflix, a scrappy startup founded by Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph. Legend has it that Hastings got the idea after being charged $40 in late fees for Apollo 13 at Blockbuster. Talk about expensive inspiration. Netflix's original model was DVD by mail, which sounds about as cutting edge now as using a carrier pigeon to deliver your TikToks. In 2000, Netflix was struggling. They were losing money faster than a teenager in an arcade, and they approached Blockbuster with an offer: buy us for $50 million. To put that in perspective, that's about what Blockbuster was making in late fees every 3 weeks. The Netflix team pitched their vision of the future: streaming, subscription models, no late fees. But Blockbuster's CEO, John Antioco, and his team basically responded with the business equivalent of LOL no. Now let's break down this catastrophic decision using some actual business analysis because, believe it or not, it wasn't just a case of terminal stupidity. Blockbuster was suffering from what we call the innovator's dilemma, when successful companies are so focused on their current business model that they fail to adapt to disruptive innovations. First, there was the financial aspect. Blockbuster's business model was like a perfectly tuned money printing machine. Those late fees weren't just profitable, they were addictive. Giving them up would be like asking a cat to voluntarily give up knocking things off tables. It's theoretically possible, but good luck with that. Second, there was the technological skepticism. Remember, this was 2000. Streaming video seemed about as realistic as teleportation. The average internet connection was slower than a snail carrying a backpack full of other snails. Blockbuster executives probably thought Netflix's streaming dreams were as practical as building a ladder to the moon. Third, there was good old-fashioned corporate arrogance. Blockbuster had crushed every competitor that had come their way. They were the apex predator of the video rental world. Netflix. Please. They probably had about as much respect for Netflix as a lion has for a mouse wearing a tiny cardboard crown. But here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean painful if you were a Blockbuster shareholder. Netflix didn't just survive, they thrived. They adapted their business model faster than a chameleon on a disco dance floor. They went from DVD by mail to streaming to producing their own content. Meanwhile, Blockbuster was still trying to figure out why people didn't want to drive to a store to rent movies anymore. By 2010, Netflix had 20 million subscribers. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy that same year. Today, Netflix is worth over $150 billion. Blockbuster. Well, there's exactly one Blockbuster store left in the entire world, in Bend, Oregon. It's basically become a tourist attraction, like a museum dedicated to corporate short-sightedness. Let's look at some numbers that will make you wince. If Blockbuster had bought Netflix for $50 million in 2000, assuming they didn't completely mess it up, which, let's be honest, is a big assumption, they could have owned what became a $150 billion company. That's a return on investment of about 300,000%. For comparison, if you had invested $50 million in gold in 2000, you'd have, well, a lot of gold, but nowhere near $150 billion. The lessons here are so obvious they practically slap you in the face. First, never underestimate disruptive innovation, even if it seems about as threatening as a puppy in a bow tie. Second, your current success can be your biggest weakness if it makes you complacent. And third, sometimes the best business decisions are the ones that seem to cannibalize your current business model. But there's an even deeper lesson here about corporate culture and decision-making. Blockbuster's failure wasn't just about missing a good investment opportunity. It was about being so deeply entrenched in their existing business model that they couldn't even see the future of their own industry. It's like being the captain of the Titanic and saying, "Nah, we don't need to worry about icebergs. We're unsinkable." The irony is that Blockbuster did eventually try to compete with Netflix. They launched their own DVD by mail service and even started working on streaming. But by then, it was like bringing a knife to a gunfight, except the knife was made of plastic and the gun was a Death Star. In the world of business, this decision has become legendary, the corporate equivalent of the guy who sold his Bitcoin for a pizza. It's studied in business schools as a classic example of how not to handle disruptive innovation. Future CEOs probably have nightmares about being the next Blockbuster. So what can we learn from all this in 2025? Well, for one thing, never assume your business model is immortal. The world changes faster than a teenager's social media bio. Second, sometimes the biggest threats don't look threatening at all. They look like opportunities. And finally, if someone offers to sell you the future for what amounts to pocket change in your industry, maybe take a moment to consider it. The story of Blockbuster and Netflix is more than just a cautionary tale. It's a masterclass in how not to handle innovation, how not to respond to changing market conditions, and how not to make decisions that will be mocked for generations to come. As we wrap up this journey through one of the most expensive thanks but no thanks moments in business history, remember? Somewhere out there, in Bend, Oregon, the last Blockbuster store stands as a monument to what happens when you say no to the future. It's like a business version of Ozymandias, except instead of ancient ruins, it's a store full of DVDs and memories of what could have been. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into corporate facepalmery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and maybe pour one out for all those late fees we'll never have to pay again. And remember, the next time someone offers you the future for a bargain price, maybe don't channel your inner Blockbuster. Until next time.